meeting at a bar and so on? He just showed up one day, and the bar owner did everything he could to kiss his ass in front of everyone. He even set up a little table in the back of the bar near the restrooms, and no one was allowed to sit there but him. The place had always been a working-class bar, but when the economy tanked and production stalled, the only people left here were the unemployed and retired. The owner was about to close it down. Apparently he had the money because he renovated the place, spruced it up a bit, and put in a modern jukebox with an amazing sound system. Gradually, they moved from retirees to young professionals because the drinks were reasonably priced, and the place was on the outskirts of the business district. They were mostly secretaries, data processors, and junior managers. Also, the owner and his bartenders really kept order, fixed problems early, took the keys, and sometimes the owner would put one of us in a cab and pay the fare. The man stood out, especially in an establishment where the clientele was usually under 30. He was old. Not an ancient grandfather, but old enough to have iron gray hair. They were long, that is, below his shoulders, and fell in thick gray waves. And they weren't dirty, they sort of glistened. And he was neat, always dressed in tight blue jeans and a black t-shirt with pictures of Harley dealerships from different states. His physique wasn't grandfatherly either, on the edge of normal. His back and arms were muscular, and his stomach was taut. There was even a hint of a six-pack. One day I saw him smiling, marveling at his straight white teeth. He saw me watching, and the smile immediately disappeared. He would come in, talk to the bartenders for a minute, and then sit down at a table. On average, he drank 3 beers in 2 hours. He always had a book or magazine in his hands. How he had time to read when the crowd came in and the music started, I have no idea. No one knew what he was driving. He seemed to just appear, and then you looked up and he was gone. For a large man just over 6 feet tall and over 200 pounds, he moved like a ghost. One day, I was standing on the back deck, and he walked past me, and the rickety old floor never once creaked or moved. He was 3 feet away from me and gone before I realized he was there. Of course we were intrigued. We made up wild stories about him. He was a hitman laying low or a former Navy SEAL hiding from the Taliban. He was in witness protection. He was a cop, mobster, etc. We called him the Gray Ghost. We were about to work up the courage to talk to him when an incident occurred that made us change our minds. Eric was large, 6'4" and over 250, but also very fat. He considered himself the meanest man in the place, the one everyone shunned, especially if he drank. And he drank a lot. The bartenders had already warned him that one more incident, and he would be banned from the restaurant forever. His buddies, knowing his temper, waited until he was half drunk before they started hitting on him through the phantom. "He's laughing at you, kid. I bet he can handle you in less than a minute." Yeah, you can tell he's not impressed. Looks like there's a new big dog in the kennel. Eric had heard enough. He staggered over to the table and leaned over, resting his hands on the table. "Who are you? I've heard you say all sorts of things about me." He looked up calmly, folding the magazine he was reading into a tight little cylinder. "Who I am is none of your business. To talk about you, I have to notice you. And you honestly don't seem interesting enough to deserve my attention. Now stagger back to your table like a good boy, and we'll forget about all this." Everyone fell silent. Those were the first words any of us had ever heard him say, and the calm tone completely belied his words. Had he really just spoken contemptuously of Eric? Eric was confused for a moment, trying to comprehend his words in his drunken brain. When he finally figured it out, he turned bright red. "Asshole, I'll be right back." That was all he had time to say before Ghost poked him in the eye with the magazine, and he didn't do it very gently. Eric growled and backed away, holding his eye. "I'll kill you," he shouted. The Ghost stood up in one smooth motion and poked him in the other eye. Temporarily blinded, Eric swung wildly. What happened next was an amazing sight. The elderly man swung around and hit him on the bridge of his nose. It sounded like a gunshot. Eric opened his mouth to scream and shoved the magazine down his throat, quickly pulling it back out. As he stood there panting, the older man continued to drive the magazine back and forth across his face, the slaps echoing around the bar. Finally, Eric whimpered. The older man was breathing a little harder now. He glanced around the table where the guys who'd given Eric a hard time were sitting. That dumbass isn't smart enough to do it on his own. Which one of you assholes put him up to this? I'd like to talk to that man. He started pacing the floor, absent-mindedly sliding the magazine across his thigh. Everyone looked at Tom, the ringleader, and he, realizing he'd been played, turned and ran out the door, the magazine hitting him on the head before it closed. The bartender helped Eric up and told him loudly that he and all his friends were forever banned from this establishment. The ghost didn't even stop, walking calmly through the door into the night. I lowered my gaze, saw the magazine, and picked it up. Smithsonian, a little highbrow for this crowd. 2 weeks later, I got out of the car. It was pouring rain, which suited my mood. Great, I thought, just great. I'll look like a drowned rat before I get to the door. Suddenly, the rain seemed to stop. I had already had 2 beers at home, and this confused me. I looked up and saw a large umbrella. I traced the handle down to my hand, and my hand went up to my face. A ghost. He didn't say a word, took me gently by the elbow, and walked me to the door. When I walked in, he smiled, and then disappeared into the night. My life was a mess. Kelly Pinkney, nerd extraordinaire, 25, no college degree, no illustrious career, no lover. Well, not anymore. I did go to college, but it took me a year to get my finance degree. I loved the numbers, loved the research I did, trying to determine the variables of the stock market in this economy. It was all just for my entertainment. I had no money, nor was there any prospect of holding an entry-level position that was nothing more than a glorified secretarial position. My personal life didn't exist now. I had a boyfriend. I was thinking long-term when he surprised me by dumping me. After my tears and whining, he told me the truth. I don't want to hurt you, but the truth is, you're boring both in and out of bed. You don't want to try new things. You haven't changed your hair or bought different clothes since I met you? For God's sake, Kelly, you're 25, not 55. If we stay up until 11, you'll be dozing off. He waved away my attempt to object. I'm sorry, I really am, but it's true. You have potential, Kelly, but you don't do anything about it. I think you have passion in you, but you don't give it an outlet, and I've stopped looking for it. Find an older guy, someone you're more interested in, have a couple kids, become a housewife. That'll suit you. He didn't realize how close to the truth he was. I really wanted to be a housewife with children, but I needed a loving husband, passionate, skillful, who would help me reach the heights I wanted. After all, I wanted to be taken care of. I know that's terribly old-fashioned and out of date. I wanted a man who would take care of me, make the hard decisions, surround me with love. As if I'd ever find a man like that. I decided to drown my grief. My friends knew I was abandoned and were supportive, but I saw the way they looked at each other when they thought I couldn't see. Loser. That phrase could have been tattooed on my forehead. The jukebox started up and my friends were invited to dance. I wasn't invited. I guess one look at my face told them I wasn't in a dancing mood. I switched to whiskey, which is not good. I was feeling homesick, which wasn't good either. I thought about calling a cab, going home to my tiny apartment and crying into my pillow, knowing I'd be alone for the rest of my life. Maybe I should get a cat. Wait, they won't let me. I'll really be alone. Shit. I had to go to the toilet very badly. I got up and staggered to the bathroom. I washed my face, decided it was a waste of time to fix my makeup, and started to walk back to my table to finish my drink and wait for a cab when I saw him. Ghost. Somehow he slipped inside and found himself at his desk, reading a book. I looked around the bar, the girls in their flirty clothes, the men, mostly professionals, in their conservative casual clothes. Only 2 were wearing jeans, and those were designer jeans, to be seen, not worn. He was wearing Levi boots that, judging by the faded leather, had belonged to him for quite some time. Now that's a real man, I thought, and before my brain realized what my body was doing, I walked over to his table and lowered myself onto it. He looked at the book in surprise, but then a slow smile appeared on his face. Hi, I'm Kelly. I held out my hand. To my surprise, he took it gently, just holding it, not shaking it. Well, good evening to you, Miss Kelly. Even his voice was a light baritone with a hint of southern drawl. He was still holding my hand. "And you are?" I asked, wanting to draw him into the conversation. He started little by little. "Please excuse my manners. He paused for a few seconds before smirking, his perfect white teeth gleaming in the semi-darkness of the bar. "Ghost." I started my own little business. His grin grew even wider. "People talk," he said, "and the more alcohol, the freer and louder the language. So, Miss Kelly, what do you want?" I looked into those warm brown eyes, and for once in my life, I decided to be truthful. "I need a man, a real man." I gestured around the bar. His eyes widened. He probably hadn't expected that. "Not like these guys. Oh, they're nice enough, but they live in their own little universe. I want to meet someone who's been in the real world, been to different places, done different things. Someone to show me how life really works." I stopped suddenly, embarrassed and realizing what I had said. When I looked back at my table, I saw my friends staring at me with their mouths hanging open. So, I thought, what does Miss Pathetic look like now? "Admirable ambition, Miss Kelly, but what does it have to do with me?" He still wouldn't let go of my hand, but I didn't mind. "That's all right, but you're clearly older and dressed for comfort, not for show. If nothing else, you look like you have experience in life, like you don't need to prove anything to anyone. I'd just like to talk to you if you don't mind." Finally, he let go of my hand and leaned back in his chair, clearly thinking. After some silence, while he debated internally, he nodded. "Good. Please join me." He signaled to the bartender. "Another Shiner box, Sam, and an Irish coffee for Miss Kelly, minus the Irish." He looked at me. "I assume you've had enough alcohol this night. If you want to talk, you should be able to at least remember. Now, tell me about yourself." For the next hour and a half, I poured out everything that had come up since high school. He listened intently, asking questions from time to time. When I got to the part about being dumped, he frowned. "Did you love him?" I used to think I did. Now I'm not so sure, but it still hurts, mostly because of what he said, and because it was true. "And what do you want now?" "To prove to himself and the world that he was wrong. I want adventure. I want to embrace life. I need a guide. Will you let me talk to you some more?" He held out his hand. "Phone." I handed him the phone. He typed in his number. "Here, if you're serious, call me tomorrow afternoon. Now I have to leave and you should get back to your friends. I'm sure they have questions. My advice, say I invited you to visit, that I'm obviously interested in you, but stop there. Their imagination will fill in all the blanks." He stood up and lifted me to my feet and hugged me. "I'm going to kiss you now," he whispered. "Half the bar is watching. Don't act surprised." He cupped his hands around my face, lowered his mouth, and kissed me slowly on my sensual lips for at least 5 seconds. Our faces flushed, and my mind went a little fuzzy. He grinned, kissed my cheek again, and walked away. I stared after him all the way to the door. My friends practically dragged me back to our table. "God almighty, girl, what's gotten into you? A ghost? Does he look as good up close as he does from a distance? Is he a good kisser? Never mind, I can see by the look on your face that he is. Is me." I raised my hand. "Take your time, Heather. He's just a man." I went to the bathroom and he struck up a conversation with me, invited me to sit down. We talked, had a drink, and yes, he's a very good kisser. Years of experience, I suspect. The girls chatted happily and were impressed when I said he had gotten my number and should call the next day. Of course, that was a lie. I should have called him if I could work up the courage. I could feel the letter L disappearing from my forehead. I was only there for a few minutes. Now that I was sober, I felt safe to drive home. When I got outside, the rain had stopped and the full moon was floating serenely in the sky. I took that as a good omen. I woke up the next morning with a slight headache and wondered if I'd dreamed it all last night. When I checked my phone, I was relieved to see his number in the ghost section. Saturday morning, I did my usual chores. Cleaned my tiny apartment, went grocery shopping, washed my little Honda. When I got home, I looked at my watch, wondering if I should call. He seemed like a nice guy, but I didn't know him, and the little episode with Eric had shown me that he could be strong if provoked. At 12:05, I decided it was far enough past noon, so I pressed send. He picked up on the third ring. "Good afternoon, Miss Kelly. How are you doing on this fine day?" Damn, the way he spoke. I even stuttered a little as I greeted him. After that, I allowed myself 30 seconds of silence. "Miss Kelly, are you still here?" Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry, I just didn't know what to say. Can we get together? Talk a little more? How about lunch? I'll buy you lunch. Unless, of course, you've already had lunch. In that case..." He interrupted me gently. "Easy. Lunch will be just fine. And I'll buy it. My dad would skin me alive if he thought I'd let a woman pay. Can you be at the bistro by 1 o'clock? Bistro. One of the hottest restaurants in town, impossible to get into, and outrageously expensive. No way in hell we could get there on short notice, even for lunch. I could, but I doubt they'd let us in. How about another place? Bistro. 1. Don't be late. He hung up. I freaked out, knowing that I had no time to get ready, and I probably wouldn't be eating there anyway. My dressiest jeans, a nice top, white sandals with a 2-inch heel, minimal makeup. I ran out the door and was in the parking lot by 12:55. I didn't notice him until he gently took my hand. How does he do that? He was wearing black jeans, well-polished black cowboy boots, and a peach short-sleeved shirt. His hair was neatly braided and tied back with a small leather strap. Wow. He greeted me and led the way. We passed a motorcycle and I stopped and looked at it closely. I knew from the TV that it was a chopper. It looked like a rolling sculpture. Bright orange, yellow, gleaming with chrome. It also looked very expensive. "Nice, isn't it?" he said with a smirk. "It's beautiful. You know, I've never ridden a motorcycle." "Really? I'll see if I can find someone to give you a ride." I shuddered. No, I'm afraid I'll be too scared to be a good passenger. "We'll see," he said cryptically, letting me inside. To my surprise, the hostess smiled and said something in French. Someone answered her, and I looked to see who it was. Damn, does he speak French too? The hostess ignored the retort, picked up a couple menus, and led us to a table. It was in the outside dining area, visible from the street. He asked for water with lemon, and I took unsweetened tea. He frowned at my choice. "What? Is it bad in here?" He grinned. "I'm sure it'll be top-notch." "No, where I come from, tea isn't tea unless it has half the sugar in it." "You must be from the deep south. One time my company sent us to Charlotte for training. It was like drinking syrup. I didn't like barbecue, but I was addicted to catfish. What does fish camp mean, by the way?" "Shame on you. You've obviously never been fed real barbecue. I'll have to make sure that a taste of the real thing enters your education." In the old days, if you went fishing, it required coordination. You had to call on your neighbor to look after your livestock, tend your crops. You were expected to return the favor when it was their turn. You would go in a wagon to the river and usually spend a couple days there. You smoked or salted your catch to eat later. Of course, word of mouth would spread, and people would stop by for supper to eat fresh fish before heading home. In this way, you camped and fished. When electricity came along and fish restaurants sprang up, people started calling them fish camps, in the old sense. That's where you went when you didn't have time to fish on your own. That's the Southern history lesson for today. He ordered for both of us without asking. "I want you to try this," he explained. "If you don't like it, you can take something off the menu that you will like." It was a roast beef sandwich, but not the usual roast beef. Herb roasted, hand-cut thick slices in a crusty bun with homemade mayonnaise, horseradish flavored, garlic roasted small red potatoes and tomato salad. There was also a small bowl of beef broth to dip the sandwich in. The tomato salad was 8 different varieties of tomatoes, finely diced, with vinegar dressing and basil, served in a parfait glass. It was probably the best dish I've ever had. My phone vibrated, and without thinking, I checked it. A message from Heather. Bistro. When I looked back, I saw her standing on the sidewalk. Before I could respond, 2 more messages came in. Cindy. Bistro? Nosh? Nosh is her abbreviation for no shit. Janie. OMG, he's going to get some. I looked up and saw that he was frowning. I know we're separated by at least 1 generation, but where I come from, it's considered rude to ignore the person you're talking to in order to take a call. You're right. I apologize. I turned my phone off and stashed it in my jeans. Let it stew. I was completely satisfied with the meal and thanked him. He grinned. We're not done yet. It's time to serve dessert. Blueberries were in full swing, so we were served the blueberry fool in a large champagne glass. Fresh blueberries, stirred into blueberry jam, and alternately layered with whipped cream, which was served in the restaurant, sprinkled with fresh blueberries. The whipped cream had a hint of lavender in it. I ignored the cries of my calorie-counting conscience and washed the glass down. I leaned back in my chair with a sigh. Thanks for lunch. I think I need a nap now. He just smiled. Oh no, it can't be. You're here to expand your horizons, remember? Now run to the restroom. I can see your hands shaking, text your friends, and meet me at the entrance. Eh? Before I could formulate a response, he headed for the door. It took me 5 minutes to write back, giving cryptic messages, following his advice from the night before. Let them use their imagination to fill in the blanks. I went outside, but I didn't see him. The helicopter we spotted had some guy in a black t-shirt and the same bandana talking to Heather. I walked over to her, looking around for him. As I got closer, I almost had a heart attack. He got off his bike and walked toward me. There you are, baby. I was getting worried. Listen, it's your friend Heather. She wants me to give her a ride. What do you say? I glared at Heather until she blushed slightly. Sincere bouncy little bitch, she better back off. I reached for him, pulling his head down, and kissed him. He hid his surprise by smirking. We don't have time right now, honey. Maybe later. Right now, Heather, I'd love to stay and talk, but we're running a little late. I'll see you at work on Monday. Stammering, she said goodbye and walked down the street. He was taking something off the bike. A helmet. He carefully put it on me. Why do I have to wear a helmet? I asked. Because it's your first time. You should always wear protection the first time. He smirked as I pondered that statement with an undertone. Besides, you'll feel safer this way. And I'm always careful when I'm carrying valuable cargo. I blushed all the way to my heels. I hesitated. I'm afraid. What if it scares me a lot or I don't like it? Then I'll stop immediately. I'll go around the block first to make sure you can handle it. But you have to go. Heather is at the end of the street, like crazy taking pictures. You'll look like the scared little girl you think you are if you don't walk at least a block. I made my decision and took off my helmet. Then let's put on a show for her. I think I can drive around the block without a helmet. Hai grinned again. Turn around. Without understanding why, I obeyed. I felt his hands in my hair for a couple minutes, pulling and tugging. There, it's all set. Look in the mirror and tell me what you think. I looked. He'd braided my hair like his, right down to the leather ties. Unrestrained hair doesn't work on a bike. After a mile, your hair will resemble Jamaican cornrows. It will take you days to untangle them. Now when you sit down, sit still. Don't wiggle. Try to stay right behind me. I'll go slow, but feel free to hold on tight. I climbed onto his back, feeling the vibration from the motor on me. After standing there for a few seconds to let me calm down, he depressed the clutch, and we rolled gently away. We were halfway down the block when he suddenly stepped on the gas. I shrieked and pressed myself into his back as tightly as I could. Half a block later, he slowed, turned a corner, and stopped. I was breathing hard. Heather was still taking pictures, so I took them. I hope she got the shot, especially when you practically climbed on my back. Asshole. You scared the shit out of me. I realized what I had said and tried to apologize, but he interrupted me. Don't. I'm not offended, and if we spend any more time together, I expect you to express your feelings and opinions like the confident woman you should be. Understood? I nodded. Do you want me to take you back to your car, or do you want to go for a ride? I couldn't wait and told him so. To my disappointment, he made me put my helmet back on. You don't have eye protection, and I'd feel safer. Next time, if you want, I'll get you some glasses, okay? I'd settle for anything for next time. I was nervous, but everything was under control. Soon the vibration and wind calmed me down, and I enjoyed myself immensely. Soon we left the city limits behind us. An hour later, it was pulling into the fairgrounds of a neighboring county. The parking lot was packed to capacity. People stopped and watched us park. I was just taking off my helmet when a couple of young girls, teenagers at best, came up to us. One of them said, "Great trip." I grinned. Yeah, he is, and the bike is cool too. Squealing with laughter, they ran toward the podium. I turned around to see him laughing. That's it. It's fun to say what's on your mind, isn't it? Great. Now where are we? Carver County Blues Festival. Some good bands, but I'm really looking forward to seeing the new duo, Freeman Feelbad, Jr. and Sweet Thang. You should see their performances on YouTube. I had never been into music, so I had no idea what the blues was. By the third act, I became a fan. When the person he wanted to see showed up, I was impressed. The woman looked to be in her early 30s and the man was probably in his 40s, but their voices were good and they blended perfectly. She was a gifted guitarist, and he did things with slide guitar that were just amazing. They ended their set with Romy Mays' song, After the Show, the man's slide guitar complementing her rhythm perfectly. It brought the crowd to their feet. They came back later. Apparently they were part of a band called Hatchet Job, another guitarist, keyboards and a drummer. Almost everyone was singing, and the harmonies were amazing. Before I knew it, I was dancing in the aisle, my hair flipping and twisting to the beat. I looked up, saw him smiling, and kept dancing. He bought us both t-shirts on the way out. "Damn, I better put this on," I said as we moved toward the dark parking lot. "What's stopping you? Go behind that building and no one will see you. And if they do, I'm sure they'll love it." There was a challenge in his eyes. "Watch me," I said, unbuttoning my shirt. I turned my back, tugging my shirt off and slinging it over my shoulder. "Catch it!" giggled I. I was just pulling my t-shirt over my head when I heard clapping and cheering. I poked my head out and saw 4 guys and 2 girls standing there. I blushed, but curtsied a little. "Next show's at 10, I called out, nimbly walking back to my man. My man? I loved it. He hugged me tightly. "I'll have to file away that you like the color pink," he said, referring to my bra. "You peeked?" I gasped. "No, baby. I was looking. It's a very nice view." I hoped in the darkness he wouldn't notice me blushing. In due time, he delivered me back to my car in the bistro parking lot, kissed me on the cheek, and drove off with a roar. I was disappointed until reality set in. To him, I was just a silly little girl playing at being an adult. I called him in the afternoon, but the message went out. I didn't see him until Tuesday night at the bar. He took his usual table and stood up when I approached. Damn, I could get used to good manners. He kissed my cheek. I was sick of this nonsense, so I pulled him to me and kissed him. "I'm not a child, Ghost. Stop kissing me like a baby." He grinned. "Instructions noted. Have a good day at work?" "Wonderful. Let me tell you about it." Not 15 minutes later, Heather was already at work. "Spill. Who is he? Where did he come from? Is he as good in bed as he seems?" I grinned. "A lot of noses? We're like the military. I didn't ask, he didn't tell. We had a lot of fun when you saw us. You really should ask someone for a motorcycle ride. It feels amazing. Watch." I showed her the picture on my phone. Me, sitting on my motorcycle, wearing my blue shirt, my ponytail tied tightly under my chest. He put his bandana on me, and I thought I looked wild, like a real biker girl. She was shocked. "So you're his bitch now?" "No," I chuckled. "At least not yet. I'm working on it, though." She snatched my phone and sent it out to all of our friends. I didn't know it, but she sent one email to my ex. My phone had been going off all morning. I spent all break and most of lunch answering messages. I called him Monday night. "Hi," I said, suddenly tongue-tied. "Hello," he said in a warm southern accent. "How is my partner in adventure today?" "Looking for another adventure. Would you like a drink?" "I'd love to, Miss Kelly, but I'm out of town. I had some business to take care of. I should be back tomorrow, but I'm not sure enough to say." I was disappointed. "Maybe tomorrow. I downloaded a bunch of blues songs today. That's all I've been listening to." I could feel his smile on the phone. "Okay, next time we're together, I'll share some of my favorites. I gotta run. I'll see you later." "Promise?" "I promise. Sweet dreams, Miss Kelly." The next day, I was surprised to see Ron at my cubicle. I looked at him, trying to figure out if I was still sad that he'd left me. No, not really. He was right. I was boring. But I'm working on it. Too bad it won't help him. "Ron, hi, how are you?" He stood for a moment before showing my picture on his phone. Was there a point? He was a little frustrated. "I'm sorry, Ron. I really am. Heather had my phone yesterday. She must have sent it. It doesn't mean anything. The bike belongs to my date that night. He took the picture." I don't know what upset him more, The fact that I was dating. Or the fact that I was dating someone with a cool motorcycle. Why would he care? Great bike. He stood for a moment. Anything else, Ron? He shook himself. No, I'll see you then. Bye. I watched him walk away, marveling at this whole exchange. The ghost grinned when I told him that. He's jealous. He expected you to mope around and feel sorry for yourself, and you bucked up and got right back into the dating game. Does he know it's me? Did we have a date on Saturday? He looked surprised. Of course you were. I asked you out on a date. You said yes. We went out to dinner, attended events. I guess that counts, doesn't it? Definitely. It was a very nice date. It was so nice. I want more, please. Give me another nice surprise. And he has no idea who it was. His smile was priceless. I'll see what I can do, actually. He stopped, looking behind me. Heather. What happened to her? Heather, I said, not paying attention. She took that as an invitation and lowered herself to the floor. Seeing this, Cindy was soon beside me, and then Janie. The small table became very crowded. He was polite, but I could sense his irritation. Janie was on one side, Heather on the other, and they were both wielding all their weapons, touching each other, showing off their cleavage. Damn cows. He stood up suddenly. I'm sorry. He walked around the table, picked me up, and led me back to his chair. He sat back down, settling me in his lap. That's better. Now everyone will have a little more room. Much more comfortable, don't you think, dear? Definitely, I agreed. I like the upholstery much better. For a second, I shuddered sensually. But there's a hard lump in the middle. Well, if I wriggle around enough, I can find a comfortable place for it. The girls glowered, and he blushed slightly, though he smirked. I stopped wriggling, suddenly realizing that there was actually a lump underneath me. I blushed, but his hand held me tightly. Every time I started to calm down, he rocked forward slightly. We were talking. I don't remember what we were talking about. He caressed my cheek, and I held his hand and kissed it. After a while, the girls went away and left us alone. Don't laugh, don't laugh, don't laugh, I repeated over and over like a mantra. One look at his face and I exploded. He gave in and started laughing with me. What was that? Jealousy. Jealousy? Of what? Come on, Miss Kelly. Tell me Heather wasn't always a hot mess, used to getting the best guys and all the attention? Am I right? I nodded. She's jealous. Suddenly you're no longer a follower. You have something she thought you were incapable of, and she can't understand why you have it and not her. That's what tonight was for, to realize how seriously I take you. I started to get angry. He stopped me. Relax. When I put you in my lap, she took the hint. But I'm willing to bet my motorcycle that she'll wait until you're not around and pounce on me. I'm gonna yank that fake blonde hair out of that bitch's head. He took my hand. Don't. I think I'm going to trick her, make her think I'm giving in, and then leave her for you. It'll make her think twice. I don't like it, I said stubbornly. Why? Because I want you. You're mine, you know. Because I'm afraid you'll like her more and I won't be able to keep up with her. She has bigger breasts, she's prettier, and I'm sure she knows a lot more tricks than I do. I didn't say anything like that, of course, but I did say that I hate to be so cruel. Instead of an argument, he smiled. You passed the exam? What? You've passed the honesty test. You're much more mature than you realize. Now it's time to amp up the wow factor. I'm afraid to ask. He looked me over critically. When was the last time you changed your hair? Bought new clothes, shoes, did your makeup? Do you have underwear, cute shorts, tummy shirts? Throw off your rags, Cinderella. It's time to go to the ball. He kissed me after another half hour and got up to leave. I'll be out of town again tomorrow until next week. I'm sorry. It can't be helped. Call me and we'll talk. A light kiss, and he was gone. The tribe was ready for me when I joined their table. Heather was a little flirtatious. I found it amusing. I called him almost every night. After the fourth call, he started calling me. We talked. We talked about everything. When he asked me what I dreamed my life would be like, I was embarrassed. It's kind of boring. If it's your dream, it can't be too boring. Spit it out. I took a deep breath. Ron was right about a lot of things. One of them was that I should find a man, get married, have a couple kids, and become a housewife. I know that's terribly old-fashioned, especially when the modern standard of living almost requires 2 incomes. But it's still my dream. I want to take care of the house, cherish my little ones, and love my man with all my heart. You can keep laughing." There was silence, and I wondered if the call had been dropped. "Ghost, are you still here?" His voice sounded a little rough, like he was trying to suppress something. Yes, I'm here. And it's a beautiful dream, baby. I hope it comes true someday. I have to go now. I'll talk to you tomorrow." Before it rang, I heard something that sounded suspiciously like a sob. I stared at the phone, puzzled. The next night I told him about my long-time dream of becoming a financial analyst, how I had to drop out of college when I ran out of money, and how much I hated my job. Instead of pretending to laugh, he pulled me into a 2-hour discussion about finance, how Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac had failed, and how a housing boom based on air and exaggerated numbers, spurred on by slick Wall Street investors and Greenspan's terrible leadership, had led to our current situation. "Damn, Miss Kelly, it's almost midnight. You should get some sleep, with work tomorrow and all. Good night." "A ghost?" said I in a little girl's voice. "Yes? Would you stop calling me Miss Kelly? I feel like I'm 14 years old." "I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking. Do you want me to call you something special?" "I really like it when you call me baby, but if you just drop the word, it'll be okay." I could feel his smirk on the phone. "All right. Good night, baby." I held the phone, smiling, for 2 minutes before hanging it up. To my delight, he ended his journey early. He never said where he had gone, and I knew better than to ask. We met at the bar. The bartender started treating me a little better. When I walked into the bar, my drink was ready, and it was placed on his table, whether he was there or not. I could see that this annoyed Heather immensely. I had always been her wingman, getting her leftovers and scraps since college. The fact that I stepped out of her shadow was hard for her to accept. He called and said he was in town and asked me to meet him at the bar. I wore my new black skirt, 2 inches shorter than ever, and still looked conservative. I was wearing my new blouse, red, silky and shiny. I left 2 more buttons undone than I'd ever done before. The approval in his eyes was worth all the money. "Gosh, Kelly, you really are a babe. Nice outfit." I laughed. "That old thing? I've had it for..." I looked at my watch. About 2 days. His embrace and light kiss made me feel boneless. "Do you have a beautiful evening gown? If not, buy one. We have an event to attend tomorrow." "What's the event?" "Surprise. I'll pick you up at 7, okay?" Before I could ask any more questions, the girls burst into the room. Before they could pull up another chair, I jumped into his lap. Heather looked like she'd kissed a pickle. "So, are you going with Kelly to the company picnic next week? If she's busy, you're welcome to join us." "Picnic next week?" A glint of interest appeared in his eyes. I squeezed his hand. "I was going to tell you that tonight, dear. Get some rest. I want to win the 3-legged race." He smiled at them. "Then I'll see you there." They took their words and left. "Company picnic?" he said, raising an eyebrow. "You were going to ask me out?" "No, because I wasn't going to. I never have a good time." "Well, baby, now you're coming. I'll make sure we have fun." He got serious again. "Don't forget, tomorrow, 7 o'clock, formally." He kissed me and disappeared. Back at the table, I told them that I needed to buy a formal dress for a date tomorrow. Cindy and Jane volunteered to go, and Heather decided to go with them. "Someone has to keep you out of the clutches of those fancy clowns." She smiled, but it was obvious she had offended them. The shopping trip was a disaster. Heather tried to steer us away from the best stores and suggested several dresses that looked awful. I was about to give up and go back alone when Cindy handed me a dress. "This one?" she said. A little black dress. Simplicity at its best. The full skirt fell 2 inches below my knee, and the bodice fit me like it was custom made. Even Hater was impressed, though she tried to hide it. I even got a little cleavage. To feel more confident, I bought new lace swim trunks, new 4-inch heels, and the absolute tiniest black thong I'd ever worn. I French-tied my hair, applied my makeup 3 times until I was satisfied, and waited. At 6:55, a Cadillac Escalade pulled up to the house, and a man in a suit walked down the sidewalk. Did he send a driver? I decided we'd take my car. When I opened the door, I froze, shocked. The suit was designer and fit him very well. His hair was neatly styled, minimally lengthened. As I studied him, he stared at me with his mouth open. He leaned over and kissed me lightly, carefully watching my makeup. "Very good, baby, very good." I glowered before responding to the compliment. "And you, sir, cleaned up very well." I looked him over critically. Black suit, gray silk shirt, black and gray striped tie. I had a sudden suspicion. "Are you wearing a Harley t-shirt under your shirt?" He only smiled wider and helped me into the car. We went to a lecture given by a very famous financial analyst. He predicted the crash 2 years before it happened and wrote a book on how to survive it as it dragged on for years. People almost derisively kicked him out of the business. And now those same people were asking him to handle their accounts. The number of tickets was limited to 500, and they sold out in 4 hours. He was the Mick Jagger of the financial world. I was fascinated, and even managed to ask a question during the Q&A that followed. I thought it was strange that we were so dressed up for a lecture, but it turned out that there was a dinner and reception afterward, followed by dancing to a large orchestra. All the cream of the local financial world was there, including the CEO of my company. We ended up sitting at the same table with him, his wife, and 2 other couples. At first I just listened, but soon I felt comfortable enough to voice my opinion. After I successfully made my point, my CEO asked me who I worked for. "You, sir," I said, surprising him. "One of our new analysts, I take it?" Before I could answer and embarrass myself, Ghost spoke. "She's not one of your analysts, sir. Not yet, anyway. She's in support, gaining experience as she prepares for her last year of college." Good thinking, I thought. "When you get your diploma, young lady, make sure we have your resume. Mark it for my eyes. One more thing. As my employee, you must dance with me, and your husband must dance with my wife. He's not—" was all I had time to say before he stepped over me. "We'd be very happy to, sir. And despite what she tried to say, I believe I can get your wife back with all her fingers in the air." The orchestra played songs aimed at an older crowd, and I shared a waltz with my CEO, while Ghost seemed to float along, taking his wife with him. When they returned to the table, she was flushed and smiling. I was introduced to just about every local figure who could get a ticket. I received several invitations to send in resumes, which made my CEO frown. We danced and chatted until the wee hours of the morning. He walked me to the door, kissed me again, and left. On Sunday we had lunch, and he asked how I felt I was progressing. "Famous, but I'm afraid it's all you, and I'm just a reflection." He squeezed my hand gently. "Not like that, baby. I wasn't the one the guys were staring at when you were dancing in the aisles at the blues show. You're very sensual when you dance. Has anyone told you that? And I wasn't the one who charmed all the men in the audience at the reception last night, and most of them admired not only your body but your brains. Would old Kelly have been able to do that? I guess not." I glowered at his praise, but then I decided he was right. The old Kelly would have died before she could ask such a famous person a question in front of a crowd, and she would have been tongue-tied in front of these rich and powerful people. No, I was coming out of my shell, and I liked it. He kissed me and told me he would be out of town for the next few days, but we would meet Friday afternoon. "Can you take half a day's vacation?" "No, but I can take the whole day." "Even better. I'll see you Friday morning. I'll take you out for breakfast. Then we'll have another little adventure. I'll get you home pretty early so you'll be rested for Saturday's picnic." He didn't tell me anything else. We talked every night for at least an hour. He still hadn't told me anything about himself, where he came from, what he did for a living. Suddenly, I had a chilling thought. What if he was married? It upset me so much that I couldn't sleep well. I debated for 2 days before broaching the subject. "Ghost, I know you don't want to talk about yourself, and I promise to stay out of the way. You've been very kind to me, and I don't want to upset you, but there's no Mrs. Ghost here, is there?" There was a long silence. I thought he'd hung up, but then I heard him exhale. "It was, baby, but not anymore." "I'm sorry. Did she leave or did you?" "Yes." I heard the pain in his voice. "Do you miss her?" "Well, it's not a burning pain anymore. More like a dull throbbing. But it's over and I can't change the past. I'm sorry, Ghost. I promise I'll mind my own business. Well, not for long anyway. I am a woman after all." He cheered up a little. "Yes, that's you. A real lively, honest, and kind woman. Young, energetic, beautiful, full of hope. I feel good just looking at you. The man who ends up with you will be very lucky. It excited and saddened me at the same time. I wanted him to be lucky, damn it. He needed love too. I could feel it in his gestures, his touch, his smile. But something was missing, so I latched onto the beautiful part of the comment. I decided to cheer him up, and when he showed up on Friday morning, I invited him into the house for the first time since he had been in my apartment. After staying up for 3 hours, I made him a full, good old Southern breakfast. Eggs, grits, gravy, home fries, liver mush. You have to live in the South to appreciate it, and trust me, you never want to see it cooked or know what's in it, and country ham served with a big plate of homemade cookies. Homemade strawberry confit I bought at the farmer's market, and real butter. Hot, strong coffee, no lattes. His eyes lit up and I swear his mouth watered. Eat before it gets cold, and if you want to show me appreciation, eat a lot. He showed more appreciation than I would have guessed. I ate a little, but I enjoyed watching him more than eating. He pushed his plate away with a contented sigh, rubbing his stomach. "Come here," he said, patting himself on the knees. I was beside him instantly, and he pulled me to him and gave me the deepest, most passionate kiss I'd ever received. That was the kindest, most considerate thing someone has done for me in a long, long time. Thank you. You're welcome, sweetie. I paused to gauge his reaction to me calling him sweetie, but his smile grew even brighter. It's time I did something for you for a change. He hugged me in a way that took my breath away, but then pulled away. You've done a lot for me, baby, more than you realize. You managed to bring me back to the world of the living, something very expensive professionals couldn't do. I should be paying you. He lifted me up before I could ask what he meant and grinned again. In fact, I intend to cancel some of my debt today. I warn you at once, don't complain once or I'll bring you home. I'm going to spend some money today, all on you. Don't worry, I can afford it. Ready? Probably not, but that won't stop me. Lead the way. He led me outside, and I noticed he was driving the Escalade again. He grinned. It's hard to strap purchases to the back of the bike. I was in for another surprise when it stopped, and Cindy jumped in. I invited her. I believe she is your most loyal friend, even if not the closest. Besides, do you really only want my opinion? I'll dress you up like the goddess you are, and then you'll have a hard time working in the office. I glowered and Cindy giggled. We visited almost all the high-end stores. He bought dresses, skirts, jackets, blouses, jeans, tops, all very fancy, all more daring than I would have chosen. But I had to admit, I looked damn good in them. I bought 6 pairs of new shoes, the shortest ones with 3-inch heels. I thought we were done until we went to the lingerie store. I went in there a couple times, but it was so expensive that I hardly bought anything. He stopped, handed Cindy his debit card, and told her his PIN number. Go ahead, buy something new for every outfit. Don't worry about the cost. Cindy, I expect you to get as much as she did as a thank you for your help today. If she refuses, go outside and call me. I'll be waiting for you at the front door. Baby knows I was once married, and one thing I've learned is that nothing makes a woman feel better than pretty lingerie. Go ahead. If you don't stay out too late, we'll have time for lunch. He was practically pushing, and Cindy was dragging, so I had no choice. We had a ball. Thongs, shorts, tangas, push-up bras. The pile kept growing. Cindy picked up a corset, satin, pink, with ribbons. It's going to look killer on you. It didn't take much effort for me to try it on. It fit like a glove, lifting my 32 Bs until they were almost out of the top. I bought a matching thong and shorts. An idea hit me. Be brave, I repeated to myself as I brought Cindy up to speed. She was in complete agreement. He was sitting on a bench reading the paper when it came out. Could you come in for a minute? Kelly needs your opinion. Of course, he got up and followed. We had already told the saleswoman about it, and of course, looking at her commission, she wouldn't have minded at all. He looked around, but didn't see me. Kelly? He called softly. This way, come on. There's no one here but me. It's safe. I was wearing a corset, which I pulled down until they were visible. Already, I yanked them down when I heard him call for them. They were hard enough to poke my eyes out if I got too close. I was wearing a matching thong, stockings fastened to the corset, and a pair of 5-inch heeled shoes he'd just bought. I heard him walk through the door and out of the dressing room. "Do I look fine?" I asked softly. I think his eyes actually bulged as I slowly turned around and the thong strap showed between my cheeks, ending in a little bow. He actually blushed. "Well?" He couldn't speak. He just stared. Then he slowly nodded his head in agreement, turned, and walked away. "Go after him," she whispered. We got dressed and he invited us to lunch. He was awfully quiet, and it took him most of lunch to come to his senses. I caught his glance when he thought I wasn't noticing, and each time he blushed. It was the first time I'd seen him without his trademark smug look. We drove Cindy home and she kissed us both, thanking us for the day. I thought it was over between us, but he turned his back on my apartment. "Where are we going?" His cocky smirk was back. "Now the adventure begins. How much do you trust me?" "Totally," I said, taking his hand and resting my head on his shoulder. He never offered to move. I gripped his arm with a death grip as we walked through the door. He seemed to know the owner. They must have biked together. "There it is," he said. "A clean palette." He looked me over. "Do you know what you want?" he asked me. "I didn't even know I was coming here until 5 minutes ago. I'm not sure about this. It's awful all the time." They both smiled. "That asshole didn't tell you, did he? What I'm about to do isn't forever. I'm going to paint them. I'm going to use ink that will last about a month before fading. This was done so people can see if they would be comfortable with a tattoo before they decide to get one." I stuck my tongue out in Ghost's direction. His grin was a mile wide. I thought it would be fun. They'd have something to talk about at the picnic. I looked at the owner. He may be an asshole, but he's a loving asshole, and as long as he's my asshole, I can live with that. I followed his eyes closely, emphasizing mine, but his smile didn't change. While they talked, I looked at his wall of drawings. "If you don't see anything you like, I can do anything. I had an idea. Can I have 2? "Sure, baby, anything you want." "When you choose them, depending on where you want them, go to the locker room and remove your top and bra if necessary. There are some wraps on the shelf. Wrap one of them around you, secure it, and we'll be ready." "Sorry," I said, and ran to the SUV, grabbing what I wanted out of my lingerie bag. I ran into the fitting room and took off my top and bra, putting on the purple low-cut bra I'd brought with me. I zipped up the wrap and walked back out into the store. "I want the Tasmanian devil, just the torso and arms, and I want you to make it look like he's coming out of my bra. Can you do that?" "I can do it any way you want," the tattoo artist said. "Put the wrapper down a little so I can make a mark, and we'll get started." Surprising them both, I pulled the wrapper off. He made a sign, and I surprised them even more by pulling down my bra just above my nipple, which, by the way, was hard as a rock. It'll be faster that way, and we'll be able to better evaluate the finished product. This story is a real journey through the important moments in life that we often miss, consumed by our daily worries and prejudices. What happens in the bar and the special encounter of the main characters remind us that behind all the masks we wear and the roles we have to play, everyone is striving for something more, for true connection, for understanding, for a true passion for life. The protagonist and the ghost reflect 2 kinds of loneliness. One when one is physically alone, and the other when one is alone among a crowd. Their encounter highlights how each of us seeks a different kind of affection and acceptance, and how sometimes the most unexpected moments can bring about crucial changes in our lives. This story makes us think about the importance of self-actualization and the courage to go beyond the ordinary to discover new horizons. It exposes the longing for a life filled with adventure and true passion against external expectations and social norms. We remind you that the full version of this story, which reveals deep layers of characters and events, is already available on our Patreon. Your support allows us to continue sharing such compelling and thoughtful stories with you. Join our community on Patreon to dive into the world of true human feelings and experiences with us. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. See you again for stories that make us think.